I think that it's a broad field. That's number one. Number two, it is new. I think that the way we describe or the way we understand and we should treat bioeconomy is that it's innovative, it's new. And we want to separate it from a number of other bio things that have gone on or that have traditional agriculture and, a lot of processing here and there, even if it has never been categorized as bioeconomy, indeed a bioeconomy. But in the context that we would like to place ourselves and in the context that we would like to create a new drive for development and perhaps a model to accelerate our economy is to think about bioeconomy as innovative, as novel. And the novelty of the bioeconomy, as we want to speak about it now, comes from new knowledge. And the new knowledge in a series of disciplines. In biochemistry, for example, there's a lot of new knowledge. In microbiology, there's a lot of new knowledge, new tools, biotools. Molecular biology, as we now know, we are understanding biological processes, biological functions from the way God designed them and how they interact, and the use of molecular biology to create DNA technology. All this is new. All these are new fields that we would like now to see them contributing to economic development, hence the concept of bioeconomy.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Andrew. You've pointed something very interesting. I'm aware that several countries or regional blocks are each adapting their own kind of modification to defining what their bioeconomy means in their context. So for the case of Uganda, you've hinted on new knowledge in terms of what you're applying in biochemistry and biotech. So
yes,
if we are to consider investment in what you're calling the bioeconomy, where do we draw the boundaries? What do we consider the bioeconomy that we want to address as Uganda?
Yes, thank you. I think that we should, again, maybe if I'm repeating myself, excuse me. I think that I have seen policies in different countries, as you have said, in different regions, people wanting to say, oh, but even fisheries is bioeconomy. Yes, agriculture is bioeconomy. Yes, they are bio enterprises, or they are biosectors. But I think that for us, we would like to see a slight difference. Maybe we can't draw a line. There is intersection. They intersect. But we would like to get into those sectors with new knowledge, with innovative systems, with innovative services, and then from those build, enhance the traditional economies, but even build new ones. That didn't exist before, or that we didn't know before, we didn't do. Let's take for example agriculture. Yes, there is we know we've survived on agriculture, we've civilized on agriculture, we've built economies on agriculture, but how do we do it differently? How do we use bioresources, the new knowledge of the subject of the fields I have mentioned? How do we create new products, new services to enhance without forgetting sustainability and also environmental conservation? Otherwise, we will exhaust those bioresources, and at the end of the day, we say, oh, what did we just do? So the knowledge should be to create new systems while at the same time thinking about sustainability.
Yes, I think you've mentioned quite a crucial point to the bioeconomy, which is sustainability. You're already using these resources, but probably unsustainably. So looking at the case of startups and entrepreneurship, from your interactions across the country, what's your opinion of the startup culture in the biotech sector in Uganda?
So first of all,
starting point.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Yes, first of all, again, as in the previous discussion, the bioeconomy is definitely interactive or interfacing with existing biosectors. I think that the status of startups exists. I think that there's a lot of startups we can categorize as bio. People are processing foods. We need, for example, all from natural resources that we never exploited before. Today, you can buy wine made from Mulondo root, and a lot of similar things, right? They're innovative. They are based on knowledge that we knew maybe in the past, but they are also incorporated new knowledge that we have come to understand the value of these plants, for example. I think we can, expand that to microbials and other bioresources. So I think startups exist, but perhaps they are not aware that they are already part of the bioeconomy. Which is why later, as we conclude this discussion on how we are going to, my opinions on how we are going to create the strategies and the models, is one of them is actually to scout, to identify people, individuals, startups out there that are actually in a bioeconomic sector, but they are aware, but I'm thinking many people don't know. And once we bring those on board, we will then create that awareness with those who are already in the sector to enhance, to build new ones, to create awareness of those who have remained on the borderline. They want to do it, but they don't know how to do it. So I think the situation, the status now is mixed. There are startups who are in a bioeconomy, but they don't know. I think very few know. They will say bioeconomy, maybe I'm in bioeconomy, but they need to be encouraged. They need to be brought on board, and then we hit the ground running with those, add others, and off we go.
Yes, so I think before I go into the next questions, I'd let the audience know that in case you have any questions for Dr. Andrew as we go on, you can post them in the chat box and I'll raise them to him. However, you've mentioned that some startups exist that would define as part of the bioeconomy, but they aren't aware of them being part of the bioeconomy. So my question is, in this case, what would be the benefit of me as a startup owner knowing that I'm part of the bioeconomy? What extra opportunities are presented to myself from this knowledge and from this identification as part of the bioeconomy?
I think that right now, let's say you have a startup in the bioeconomy. Do you know that you are in the bioeconomy? Maybe you don't know, but you are already benefiting from your innovation. So inherently, innovative ideas in processing and delivering bioresources as a product and service is already a plus in itself, because you are creating a uniqueness, you're creating a unique market, and you are building on existing knowledge to propel your startup to medium and maybe to large scale in future. So inherently already there is a benefit because it's innovative. Everybody is looking for something new. But later on, I think that things like coalition, associations, when we have convinced the government well enough to create a subsector of sorts that people identify together, I think that then benefits can accrue from association, from sharing new ideas, from looking for capital and investments and support to build, to expand. And I think those are important, and I think that they can come with creating a critical mass of people who are thinking the same, and then also building a buy-in from governments.
Yes, thank you very much. You've raised a very important point, which brings me to my next question, and that is the issue of capital. For startups in any sector, investment and startup capital is always a key challenge. So for the case of the biotech startups, how do we attract investment? Where do we look for it? Who are the investors who are willing to invest in this kind of things?
Yeah, good question. That's what I have been thinking about for the last couple of years. And being at the Danforth Plant Science Center in the US, I have picked up a couple of ideas that, although this is the way it's done in the US, we can try to develop similar ideas here in Uganda and in Africa. This is venture capital generation. Now, venture capital refers to people who would like to venture. Venturing means to adventure, to go and discover, meaning that these are people who are willing to try something with their money. You know, if you want to go to an adventure, it means you're going to, spend some money and go on an adventure, and you never know what you'll get, but you have hope. So in the US, there's lots of venture capitalists, individuals who have some money, and they've kept it in the bank, and they're like, oh, I wish this money did something different. I'm already comfortable. I think I've already sorted my future. But then there's this money. Is there a way I can use this money to make a difference in livelihoods, to make a difference in the economy, and something exciting, something interesting? So what I'm trying to put together, if you may know, is something called Bioinnovations Venture Club or Bioinnovation Venture Foundation. What we would like to do there are mainly three things. One, to create the awareness among the business community that bio is a resource, bio is money, bio is, economic development. And that, if somebody has some money and they are willing to venture into something different, new, as opposed to building a petrol station or a small restaurant, you could give us some money to try out something different together. In venturing, it's you, the scientist, the innovator, together with somebody who says, oh, here is $10,000 and here is some money. Let us try this together. And I think we can find those people. If we can find a few, we can use those to convince others to bring in money into say, a coalition, an association, a club, where we evaluate startups, where we think about ideas that might make money, and then we try them out. We put some money on there and see how it works, and create the markets, create the awareness, and maybe even banks, could bring in some money when things start to look good. So those are some of the ideas that I've picked up, and I would like to see how we can try that. And for some people who are already with startups in the bioeconomy, and even new innovations that might create new businesses.
Yes, I think you've presented a very interesting idea that probably, even after this discussion, the students here and other biotech practitioners will want to know more about, and that is the Bioinnovations Venture Club. I've heard of this previously in your conversations. I don't know how far your efforts have gone with this.
I have been consulting on how to make it more encompassing, and the idea was that maybe it shouldn't be a company, it should be maybe a foundation, so that people see it as a non-government organization, a non-for-profit. So it shouldn't be making profit for itself, but supporting those who are members, supporting those who come to join with ideas, with networks. Bioresources can't be a product just on their own. You need to process them somehow, you need to package them somehow, you need to market them somehow. So creating that system through networks, through people who already know how to do these things, and bring together the knowledge and see how we propel it. So we are in the final stages of registering, and then we will let people know, maybe on this forum, obviously, and start to meet and start to, to create the discussions that move us forward.
Yes, so before I move on to my next question, there's a question here in the chat. Patricia Nantaza is asking, why not first come up with the ideas before seeking funds? One cannot fund air. So maybe is your club or your foundation thinking of ways they can first of all promote the generation of these fundable ideas before then we move on to looking for investors to invest in these ideas?
I think the two have to run in parallel. Yes, I think that as we generate ideas, we create awareness of those ideas among people who might want to venture. It might be ourselves, it might be others. Just listing ideas and then we don't have money for them, maybe is not very worthwhile. But if we list those ideas and display them and discuss them with people who might have who might want to invest, create startups, and say, okay, that's a nice one. Why don't we put it in? I have a small company, or we can start a small company. What capital do we need? Is 10 million okay? Is 20 million okay? Something like that. So the club, which is why I like to use the word club, is like we sit around, not just ourselves. We sit around with people with money. This is an idea. This is what it costs to bring maybe 10 bottles to the shops or to the market. Then the discussion goes on, and 2 or 3 people walk to the side and start talking bank accounts. You understand? So I think it's a combination. We shouldn't first have the ideas hanging on one side and then start looking for the money. If we sit in the discussion, ideas flow and interest is built, especially for those with whom we would like to get capital from.
Yes, I think I hope Patricia is satisfied with the response. So you mentioned about searching for investors. Elsewhere, those who are already moving in what you're calling the bioeconomy, they have found investment in the biotech startups quite a risky venture, given the nature of biotech research and innovation. So in the case of Uganda, how do we de-risk investing in biotechnology? How do we ensure that the risk that the investor is likely to face from this investment is kind of managed or reduced? How do we do that?
Venture capitalists are risk takers. First and foremost, that must be understood, that we are in this to try, and therefore there is a certain level of risk. But we can reduce the risk by being strategic, by being thoughtful, and by being a network. Because the more people you are, the less the risk. For example, let's say you want a machine that boils or ferments or whatever, and you're not going to buy this from China or from the Netherlands, wherever, because that's going to be a lot of money. Can you walk the streets of Katwe and find someone who can make a stainless steel boiler or something like that? Say, okay, how much does that cost? Or could we bring such a fabricator into the business? You say, well, why? We need this machine, but we are investing together. That type of networking reduces risk for the investor and for the innovator at the same time. But first and foremost, we must always appreciate that venturing has a certain amount of risk, which is the first thing they teach you in the entrepreneurship class.
All right. So now bringing this closer to the benefit of the students or innovators who may be on the call here, how do we now have a transition from, let's say, the research ideas in the lab or the research institutes or the universities and translating this into sustainable businesses to drive the bioeconomy?
Yes, exactly. Let's take, for example, that you have an idea. You have been going through school and and you are a Ugandan who walks the streets or who walks the villages, and you think you have an idea that can change life, you have an idea that can make a difference, which means then you need a platform. And this platform should provide you, first of all, protection for your idea. I think that's one of the things that we have not done very well. And when we first lobbied for a Minister of Science and Technology, the minister asked me, I said, you know what? We have a lot of people who have ideas, but they fear that these ideas will be stolen. Because if you're going to invest in an idea, for Christ's sake, let it remain a secret for you and for those who have put money into it for a while. This is how it's done all over the world, you know? So intellectual property is protected either as a secret or protected by an institution like a government. So if the ministry or the registration bureau and the power of government help us protect our ideas until such a time when we have, you know, made some capital, made some profits from the investment and the intellectual property. And those are the things we'd like to tell the government. And in a platform such as what we might put together is to say, well, you have your idea, write it up properly. Let us protect it either here locally, and if it has potential across Africa, we can go to, the ARIPO, which is our African Intellectual Property Registration Organization. And at least you know you have a protection. If you find someone somewhere doing it, you have power to stop that. Then you also get the confidence, and your investor also gets the confidence that, this thing, we are going to put money and we'll soldier it ourselves for a while. And then with these platforms, we want to convince governments, give us some money, surely. If we have a platform, give us some money, let us fund, like they are doing for small things outside. There's a lot of money I see in small agricultural projects. Ours is different. Ours is a platform where we have young people, we have ideas, and we think we can bring them to market. We need startup money. And but if you walk into the Minister of Finance's office alone, you will probably not even ever see him. But when we're a big group and we keep pushing, we'll get audience. And we will start to be felt and supported.
Yes, thank you very much for that response. I would like to once again encourage those who are participating in the call to raise your questions to Dr. Andrew as we go on with the discussion. So you've mentioned a key factor, which is the IP. A few weeks back, we had a very long discussion on this whole topic with some people who have done this process before, the IP. And in some cases, I think there was only one gentleman who had an IP registered in Uganda, which probably communicates to how unpopular the process is still for our innovators in the country. So now you've had the chance to work here in Uganda for a very long time, and you're now spending time in the US still for a long time. If you were to look at the biotech startup culture in the US and probably that in Uganda, what can we do as Ugandans? What can we do better? What kind of institutions can we put in place? What kind of systems can we try to develop to get that good startup culture and probably grow our bioeconomy towards the levels of other countries like in the European Union or the US or China? What lessons can we borrow from where you've been and implement them here?
The one thing that we are not doing very well is protecting our intellectual property. You know, in the US, they invite you to a meeting where people are going to discuss ideas. And then, the guy just shows only one slide. And then you're like, oh, but how does this thing work? He said, don't worry, it works. One time I tell you a story. We had a meeting on marijuana, and there's so much excitement about developing drug. Now that it's allowed for treatment and stuff like that, and the meeting room filled up, and somebody was presenting, and then someone put up the hand and said, "But where can people access seed?" And then he sarcastically said, it drops from the sky. You know, that level of protectionism is important. You might be frustrated that this guy is not telling you, but why should he tell you? He doesn't want to tell you. He's got his idea, and until, you know, he wants to make money out of this idea, he's not going to and then from then on, there's all these strict guidelines. If people are coming to a meeting, you know, you sign confidentiality agreements, even with the regulators, even government bodies like UNBS or whoever you might want to go out and get things done. You say, this is a business secret. I would rather that you don't discuss it with anybody else, and normally they don't. You know, so from that kind of thing, you get your registration maybe in Uganda, because maybe that's easier other than outside, and because you have that in you, that you have protected, or it's easier to sell. It's easier to sell. I can tell you, nobody will give you money when he believes next time it will be on the streets of Katwe being fabricated perhaps even faster overnight than yourself. You know, that's where the disappointments come from, the risks come from. Other than that, I think that, you know, you walk into a bank managers and say, you know, I have this idea, I've started it, this is my prototype, the thing works, I have protected it. You tell the bank manager, this is the patent certificate. Nobody is going to copy this for the next 20 years. The bank manager will think that, that's interesting. Really? How much do you need? You see? So I think that's where we need to start. I've been to meetings where there is even security. They give you papers, you can't come out with a notebook. You can't come, you've made some notes, all those papers remain on the desk. Phones, telephones, taking pictures are not allowed. It's not because it's because they want to protect the investment, they want to protect the idea, because people steal, people copy, and if there's a lot of copying and the remanufacturing of things, then the investment doesn't work. That's where to start. And platforms can help us to do that.
Yeah.
I think that the registration bureau here can help us to learn more and shorten the processes and the ways to at least register in Uganda before we can approach. I know people who have registered at Aripo here in Uganda, and they have registered by Ugandan bioresources, by the way, but they are careful to register process that brings out the product. So there are many ways and there are examples we can learn from.
Yes, I think it's interesting to learn that there's been some Ugandans who have gone through this process before, and probably you guide the younger innovators to also protect intellectual property.
Yes. Pick up your ideas, you know, and then we should learn. We should also learn how to write the patents. You know, what entails in a patent. Giving us a presentation of how to patent and how to do intellectual property is a good thing, but what is a patent? Is it a form? How do you write it? Does it have an introduction? Does it have, how is it written? How do you argue that your idea is new? How do you separate from other existing ideas? And that's what we need. Even me, I don't know how to do that.
Well, so when we look at the issue of investment, I think because of the pandemic, we've had a number of investors in other sectors leave the country, probably due to maybe their businesses are no longer making profit, or some unfavorable policies like taxes and all that. So in the case of the biosector and the bioeconomy, how do we attract investors besides having the IP protection? How do we attract investors to believe that they can invest in a biotech startup in Uganda and they can expect to break even in a few years and start making profits of their investment?
I think one idea I have is to create a government buy-in. And one time recently, a couple of months ago, maybe more, we had a discussion at Serena there, and then we wondered, you know, the bio sector such as ours creates a fundamental challenge in terms of equipment. and laboratories and what do you call it, pilot plants, say if you want to, do a fermentation of something, a medium to large scale fermenter is an expensive piece of equipment. But you find that the government has given tax-free status to tourism, and tourism can get tourist vehicles tax-free.
Yes.
Can't we also argue the same? Here we are building this economy through bioresources. We need a machine or two machines or three machines located where we can share them. And then, or somebody somewhere is investing in this big time, but it's expensive to buy this machine. Can we get tax-free? And I think through those type of negotiations, the government can give either a tax holiday or for a limited period, because also they don't want to create too many loopholes that might be exploited by those who really don't want to pay tax. We want to pay tax. We are going to pay tax on the services that we will deliver, but to get those services out, this thing is expensive. Can we, just like you've given tourism tax-free vehicles, road construction and stuff, tax-free equipment, even labs. This is, and I'm sure the president loves science and technology. If we told him, he said, hey, why didn't you tell me before? We have all these people are getting equipment tax-free. You also need lab equipment tax-free.
Yeah.
So again, it's networking, having a unified voice, voices of many people saying the same thing. And the more we are, one day maybe we have the cousin of the president or the son of the president sitting among us. And then if we convince him, he says, I'm going to talk to dad tomorrow and let's see what to do. But if it's just me and you, who will hear us?
Surely you should work on having the first family here with us on these platforms.
Yeah, members of the family, when we are sitting together, someone says, but the president is my distant uncle. Can I talk to my auntie? And my auntie talks to her sister, who is the wife of so-and-so, But that can only be done when we are a big group. When we create a mass of people, then opportunities come.
Right. I think the suggestion of the tax exemption of biotech is something we could pursue, and I think it has been done for the COVID tests to an extent that
exactly
for COVID testing.
And we don't want it to be. We can negotiate it. We can say, okay, we get tax exemption only for 1 year.
Yeah.
Because if you just want to buy some equipment and stuff, let's give it for you for 1 year with some letters and okay. And then after that, they put it back because they don't want to open up too many. If you open up too many things, it becomes difficult for them also to police people who are exempted.
Yes. And then my next question is now on, for the case of, let's say, like young students or even just young researchers who would like to, before you get investment, you need to prove that the concept works. And that alone is quite expensive. The last time we met, you mentioned you're trying to set up a lab of your own. Yes. So how easy or how difficult is it for someone to, first of all, develop a proof of their concept and it's biotech? Need all these reagents, the equipment, the laboratories, and all this. And how can we probably make that process a whole bit smoother?
Yeah. There's one time I kept asking myself, how comes there's a lot of innovation and support for innovation in the ICT sector? They have these, last month, there was a National Innovation Week. Very little of that was bio. Most of it was ICT and by the way, sorry to say, people in the group or on this call that are ICT, very few of those ICT innovations actually make it to the market. Reason being that already the ICT sector is overloaded with a lot of stuff that comes from outside, and it is based on resources that have already been exploited. Then it came to daunted on me, as you just said, that, you know, for us to prove concept, we don't just sit on a computer. We need a whole fully furnished or fully equipped lab. My ideas around there is, yes, I have put together my own lab, but that has been a process of many years, buying all equipment here and there, and some of it doesn't work, some of it needs, it's a long process. But I'm thinking, if we created, again, through government support, maybe at UNCST, we created a network of centers of excellence, laboratories of excellence at universities and other research institutions who already have functioning equipment or semi-functioning equipment. And we have this center of excellence concept managed by a national institution, a national, my idea has always been UNCST. And so we have a network of laboratories. Yes, those laboratories were set up to do medical work, medical, maybe diagnostics, you know, but a lot of stuff that we do, the equipment is the same. And through that network, that network of centers of laboratory excellence, we gain access, we sign agreements to gain access at certain times without adversely affecting their work. Gain access, shared space, shared lab equipment use for key ideas and key deliverables. I think that way we can make it work. And the labs are many. The labs are actually many. Right now, you know, the big universities have labs. Sometimes you walk through the university, and because laboratories became lecture rooms, they have bundled up all the equipment into a store, you know, but all that can be reassessed. We have, take for example, spectrophotometry is very, very important. The cheapest spectrophotometer is like 2,000 shillings. You don't want to spend 2,000 shillings on just one piece of equipment, which can only just test your DNA. You want to do so many other things. So if we looked in these places and did a laboratory survey through UNCST and awarded laboratories membership of a laboratory center of excellence lab that can be accessed by startups who need to prove concept for a certain period, maybe with some little money, maybe even UNCST can sponsor you to spend a month, 2 months, 3 months at a particular lab of your choice. I think that way we can make it work. Rather than say, oh, everybody starts the lab. It's a long process. It's a difficult process. It's also an expensive process.
Yeah.
So my colleagues, but you see, man, the ministry got disorganized. We were working on something like that with the Maxwell team, and then he went to the ministry. Now out of the ministry, we don't know how UNCST is. But since I'm coming back next year, I want to re-engage and see how that process, because it is important. And that's the only way our innovations never get even to the National Innovations Week, because we have the ideas, but we haven't tested them. We can't test them. The labs are expensive. But if such a network existed, you see, we have a centers of laboratory excellence listed, networked with the logo, and they are pasted in these places. They also feel proud to be recognized as a lab of excellence. They would welcome us to work there.
Right.
Hmm.
Yes, I think these are very beautiful ideas that you're raising, and this recording will be available, and also a report will be written to capture all these ideas you've just shared with us. Now,
Okay.
my second last question of this discussion, as the audience also prepares their questions, is reading other countries' bioeconomy strategies. It seems like each country looks at the bioresources they have and they try to figure out which particular sectors of the bioeconomy they would make the most progress in. For example, some countries, maybe they have a lot of forests, so they focus on how they can make bioproducts out of that forest resource. Others maybe have the seas, marine resources, and all this. So for the case of Uganda, and for those who'd like to come up with innovations, which particular sector of biotech or biological research could easily translate into the market and actually thrive there? Where those of us who are thinking about new ideas and solutions can easily, contribute with the assurance that in the context of Uganda, this idea can easily be taken up by the economy and absorbed so that it makes business sense at the end of the day. Doctor?
My answer is only a tip of the iceberg to the answer, to the many answers that can come to that question. First and foremost, why is my idea just a tip of the iceberg, maybe even not at the top of the iceberg, one of the little sides, is that Uganda is gifted by nature. And I think that our natural resources transcend single commodities or single sectors. We have fisheries, for example. I think that Uganda is already heading to become one of the top aqua fisheries country in the world. You see? That's one. And when you see trends, if you study trends and you see that aqua fisheries is trending, is going up and up, it means that's where the thing is. That's where we are. That's one. Two, Uganda has already made a name in livestock, well, even fish is livestock. Yes, in our traditional livestock. I think soon we are not only going to export milk and milk products, but we are also going to start to export things like pork products, pork meat like Brazil does. We are going to we're already exporting chickens, eggs, and a number of livestock. I think people have done goats. I'm sure somebody is exporting goat meat to the Middle East. Now, if we look at those commodities making a trend upwards, I think that's where we need to focus. New ideas. And a good bioresource for livestock is feed. I think we can exploit a lot of our bioresources, plants, microbes, even waste that comes from other processed products and create cheap feedstock. If we have cheap feedstock, no other country can beat us exporting animal food products. We can make vaccines. We can make drugs, and the biosecurity requirements or the biosafety requirements for animal medicines, vaccines, and others is not as stringent as for humans. So we can make headway through those regulatory requirements to put out pharmaceuticals for livestock. And for me, livestock, right from aquaculture to goats, to pigs, to chickens, to cows, is going to be one of our biggest sectors in the near future. And it is indeed a good market, a good place for our bioeconomy and those of us who want to do startups in the bioeconomy. Yes, having said that, you will see already how Kenya is threatened with the food from here. Kenya is not the only place. My friend, Kinshasa is 15 million people. 15. Just Kinshasa alone. Yet there are countries we know are less than 2 million, a whole country. This is a big place. All we need is government to help us fly our food there, and man, the sky will be the limit. Especially livestock and DRC and all these other countries that are forested with large forests. They have challenges raising livestock. A lot of their livestock products come from Brazil. Can you imagine Brazil shipping across the Atlantic to feed people on the western side of this continent? We have only been hindered by the forest. If we overcome that by flying cargo, livestock from Uganda will be a big thing. So that's just a tip. There's so many other things, but I see it growing. And the other good thing about livestock is that it's also one of those things that can help it can help smallholders. You know, we can build an economy from mining, right? But it's only 1 or 2 people who mine, and then the money goes to government somehow, and yeah, maybe the government uses it. But livestock, that's money that spreads out to many people.
Yeah.
You know, many more people individually or in a small household can benefit from a small livestock enterprise that has export value and good value addition.
Yes. I hope that the rest of us are picking ideas on which sectors we can innovate in that can easily thrive in our context of Uganda.
Feedstock. For me, I'm going feedstock and feedstock. And by the way, even pasture agriculture is also feedstock. So if you're, I know farms where they grow maize and they just cut it down to feed cattle. So
yes. Yes. So it seems, are there any questions from the rest of the participants on the chat? In case you have a question, you can raise up your hand and you unmute and ask Doctor the question as you wind up. Any questions? Isaac, Eric, any questions from you? Right. So I think I can assume that the rest of the people on the call perfectly understood Doctor's submissions. And my last question now.
Maybe that's why there are no questions.
Yeah. So I think the last thing now, as a parting remark, could be, how can we take advantage? How can we participate in this direction towards the bioeconomy? How can the rest of us play a role in joining the bioeconomy?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking that let us network. Let us network as much as possible, and let's bring a lot of people who don't know they're in the bioeconomy, and let's bring them to the table. Let's create a club. Let's discuss. Let's drink wine over it. Let's drink whatever we want to drink, beer, and let it just be our daily conversation. And after that, we should converse while actually doing it. If we go to the president and we are saying, President, we need equipment to help us do this, we go there with a bottle of something. Look, I've made a vaccine for East Coast fever. I have made a microbial for for animal nutrition. But I need a fermenter. I don't know where to get it. We need money. Oh, we are a group. Give us land and we build a central lab, something like that. And the president will say, how much money do you need? So, but we can't do that unless we are together and we are talking, which is why I have liked this biotech series. We should meet physically. We should do things physically and start to. Of course, in the beginning, there's so many voices from different directions, so many people doing different things. But at the end, the conversation should start to become more uniform, and we start to focus on what we really need to get done.
Yes, I think that's a very good suggestion. Yes, the Biotech series are an initiative of Makerere University Biotechnology Society, which is a student umbrella body for students doing biotech at Makerere University. And our host has been Mwine Perez, who is the president of that society. I would like to thank Dr. Andrew for making the time for this discussion, and I think we are right on time. I'd like to thank him for making time for this discussion, and I hope the rest of us have picked a thing or two that we can implement or that we can think about. Yeah, so there's an initiative he's working on that will be soon publicized when it's ready, and probably get to be a part of that. He has encouraged physical discussions. We are working on those as soon as we are able to, so that these discussions can really translate into actionable points and things we actually get to work on. I would like to once again thank Dr. Andrew for making the time, and the rest of us for keeping on the call and listening in to these ideas. The recordings will be available after the meeting, and a report will also be published and shared on the social media platforms of the Biotech Online series. I would like to thank you once again, and I wish you all a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ian, and bye-bye to all. Have a nice weekend, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.